Good morning, everyone. It is truly a pleasure to be here. And I want to say thank you so much for your introductory remarks. Before we speak about the Weeksville Heritage Center, I want to share a few words about my recent visit to the White House. Yesterday, I did something that I am truly reluctant to do. I left New York City. I traveled down to Washington, D.C. to meet with President Trump in the Oval Office. I have said time and again that our city faces an immense affordability crisis. It is felt by residents here in Weeksville, across Brooklyn, and across the 5 boroughs of the city that we all love and call home. And it is felt whenever New Yorkers try to find a place to live, go grocery shopping, put their kids in childcare, or even take public transit. Addressing this crisis was the focus of my meeting with the President. I proposed working together to build more than 12,000 new homes in our city, which will be the single largest housing development New York City has seen since 1973. The President was interested in the idea, and I look forward to the ensuing conversations about how to build more housing in a city that doesn't have enough of it. We also discussed the immigration cases I know are front of mind for so many New Yorkers. I shared my concern with the President about ICE's detention of Columbia student Elmina Agayeva yesterday morning, as well as the detention of 4 additional New Yorkers in relation to the university: Mahmoud Khalil, Mohsen Mahdawi, Yunseo Chung, and Nakak Ordia. I asked that their cases be dropped. I'm grateful that shortly after our meeting, the President called me to inform me that Elmina would be imminently released, and indeed she was.
Thank you. Mayor, welcome back.
Thank you.
You described your meeting with President Trump as productive. In what sense was it productive? And I also want to ask you whether naming the finished product actually came up.
It was a productive meeting in the sense that after our first meeting in the Oval Office, one of the topics of conversation that we focused on was housing. Housing, not only because it was the foremost and continues to be the foremost crisis in New York City, but also because it's a place of immense interest in this moment across the political spectrum. And I knew that leaving that meeting, it was my responsibility to return with tangible proposals for what a partnership could look like in building exactly that in New York City. I'd stood with the President looking at a portrait of FDR the last time I was in the Oval Office, and I had shared the fact that who I believe to be the greatest mayor in New York City history, Fiorello LaGuardia, so much of his success was tied to his partnership with the federal government and how that could continue to be a model in the years to come. And so in working with my team, we sought to answer the question of what could it look like to bring that kind of partnership back to New York City at a scale that's needed to address this crisis. And so we put forward a proposal to build more housing in a single project than the city has seen since 1973. More housing than you would get combining Hudson Yards and Battery Park City together. And not just housing, but also parks, also childcare, also hospitals, an entire new neighborhood. And I was heartened by the fact that the President was interested in this proposal, and I anticipate it will be the subject of conversations to continue.
Sorry, we've got to move on. Ayanna, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor. Who initiated the meeting with the President yesterday? Did he invite you? Did your office reach out? About how long was the conversation? And did any other topics come up aside from housing and the detained students? Did you guys discuss ICE enforcement in New York City, the funding, federal funding to help potentially close the budget gap here in New York City?
So this meeting took place in part of a larger context of the last meeting that I had with the President, where we left that meeting knowing that we would continue to be in conversation and to have meetings, always bringing it back to how we can serve this city. And I've said that time and again that I will speak to anyone to ensure that we can advance the agenda of keeping New Yorkers in New York. And the focus of the conversation came back to what it would look like to partner with the city to create this scale of housing, what it would look like to create the largest rail deck in the world, larger than that of Paris, than that of Hong Kong. We spoke about the detention of the Columbia student that morning, and I shared my concerns as part of my long-standing belief that ICE raids are not only cruel, they also do nothing to advance the cause of public safety. And I care very deeply about public safety in our city, and we have continued to focus on delivering exactly that. And I shared with the president that I thought that these continued detentions, as well as cases of those who are out of detention but face the prospect of having to be forced back into detention, do nothing to advance that cause, and I asked for those cases to be dropped.
Thank you. Melissa, go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
Hi, Melissa.
In the latest Department of Homeland Security press release last night or statement, they seem to imply that the intention was not to detain Eli Agayeva, that they just released her because she's been placed into removal proceedings. And I'm just wondering, during your advocacy with President Trump, what do you think the winning argument was? And did they reverse course?
All I can tell you is what happened, which is that I shared directly with the president a list of names of Columbia students and those who've also been detained because of their activity on Columbia campus, and that these actions do nothing to advance the cause of public safety. And I asked that these cases be dropped, and the president said that he would look into it. Soon after the meeting, I received a phone call from the president saying that he was going to imminently release her.
Thank you.
A few of them are Columbia students. One of them was detained on the basis of her being present on Columbia campus at a protest.
Thanks. We'll go to Henry, and then we'll go to Sahaley.
Thank you, Audra. Hi, Mayor. Welcome back.
Hi, thank you.
Back to the housing proposal.
Yes.
What assurances did the president give you that he would follow through, especially given that he has worked to actually defund some of the major infrastructure projects of the tri-state area? And why bring this one forward when it's so cost-intensive to cover the rail yard? Could billions not be used better to build more housing elsewhere?
So the president shared his interest in the proposal, and I am encouraged by the fact that we will continue to talk about this proposal. It is going to be a long process. We are speaking about an idea that had its first beginnings in the 60s and 70s and 80s. It's a long-standing proposal. The reason to focus on this one specifically is in a city where we know that land is so precious and so finite, here lies an opportunity to create more of it by creating the largest rail deck the world has ever seen. And then on top of that rail deck, building more housing than we've seen since the construction of co-op houses and Co-op City. And that presents within it an opportunity to deal with a housing crisis where right now we know there are far too few homes in New York City, even for those who already call New York City home, let alone for those who want to join us in this city.
Thank you.
He said that he was interested and that the conversation would continue. Thank you.
We'll go to Haley and then Joe right next.
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
Hi, Saley.
Did you speak to any local, thank you. I wanted to ask about the Sunnyside Yard project as well. Did you speak to any local electeds in that area about the project in advance to your meeting with President Trump? And if not, what conversations are you planning to have in the near future?
You know, we've had a few conversations across elected officials, labor organizers. Those conversations will continue because this is a long-standing project that will also require a long-standing commitment, and we're just at the very beginning of it. And I broached this with the president because of the fact that this is one of the busiest rail yards in the entire continent, frankly. And the city cannot build on these rail yards without the approval and direction of the federal government. It will also require the federal government shifting a few policies as it pertains to bond caps and risk sharing, all of which are impossible for the city to do on its own.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Joe, go ahead, and then we'll go to Inside Edition.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. How are you
Hey,
doing?
Joe. How's it going? Sorry. I was looking for you.
I'm here, not on the floor, in the chair.
Yes.
Could you tell me how the meeting came about, who approached who, and when? And I was also wondering if you can explain a little more broadly, you know, on the campaign trail, you had a very different posture saying you would be kind of the president's worst nightmare. Since taking office, you really have gone to great lengths, I think, to not criticize him and foster this relationship. It's very different than most Democrats in the country. Can you tell us why, you know, you're taking this tack?
So I said over the course of the campaign that I will always be honest and direct with New Yorkers about my views. The president and I have many disagreements, which we share publicly and we share privately. And I also said on that same campaign trail that I would be willing to work with anyone, no matter disagreements, so long as it was to the benefit of the city that we love. that is what it comes back to. Every conversation has to be advancing the agenda of working New Yorkers. And when we think about 12,000 new homes for working and middle-class New Yorkers, we see the possibility of so many more people being able to put roots down here in this city. And this was a meeting that was scheduled as part of following conversations from the prior meeting, which was in November. There was always a sense that that would continue. It's, as you know, not the first meeting I've had with the president. It won't be the last. And we will also continue to advocate for anything and everything that can help New Yorkers continue to remain in New York.
Thanks. Go ahead.
And so when it was planned, sir?
I think this came in the aftermath of the prior meeting. I would say that finalizing the dates, I'm not sure exactly when it was, but it's just part of a long-standing conversation.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Joan. If we could pass